Hello, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm 16-Bit, and I got a good show for you this week. We're going to be talking about limited run games versus memes, as well as Capcom and issues with Pokemon Sword and Shield. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And man, it's been quite a while since I've done one of these, hasn't it? In fact, I think it's been exactly 4 weeks. So I just want to quickly explain what exactly happened. So after the November 4th episode, there was a few personal things I had to do. And I knew it was going to eat into at least 2 weeks worth of episodes. So I decided to take a 2-week vacation from the show, do whatever I had to do, and then come back. And that was the plan. However, almost as soon as I was done, 2 things happened. 1, my MacBook hard drive decided to anhero itself. And number 2, Mother Nature decided to be a complete bitch and give me a cold. So it basically made doing any episodes impossible. In fact, I could have done a new episode because the desktop was perfectly fine. However, I would have sounded like absolute crap, and it would have taken forever editing out all the coughing and sneezing. It would have been a complete hassle. So I decided to not do it entirely. The good thing is that I'm now cleared up. Everything is fine. As for the MacBook situation, what I did is I was able to back up the old hard drive. The problem is that the hard drive was dying, so the RPMs were incredibly slow, and it just took me about, I think, a day and a half to back up about 260 gigs worth of data. Thankfully, though, I was able to completely back it up and put it onto the new hard drive, which is a 1 terabyte SSD. So I completely upgraded it. And the thing is, I saved myself a lot of money by doing that. Because I looked into how much going through Apple would have cost, and basically would have been like $400 or $500. I'm like, screw that. So basically, I just bought an SSD on Amazon and then just installed it myself, backed up all the data, installed it myself, and there was no problem. In fact, the funny thing about Mac is that basically there's 2 different types of Apple users. There's Apple users who understand that Macs are basically glorified PCs that use standard PC parts, and then there are Mac users who basically are tech illiterate and run to the nearest Apple genius the moment that there's a problem with their computer. In fact, it kind of reminds me of something that happened a few years ago. So when I got my MacBook, okay, I had to get it for art school, and it came with about 4 gigs of RAM. And if you know anything about Photoshop, you know that it basically takes up 2 gigs of memory. So the moment I booted up Photoshop, this thing would start slowing down like crazy, and it got ridiculous, and I started just really getting frustrated with it. So much so that I began looking into a RAM upgrade. But it turns out Apple charges anywhere between $200 to $400 just for a RAM upgrade. And so that was completely out of the question. However, during my research, that's when I found out that MacBooks basically use standard laptop parts. So rather than paying them out the ass for an upgrade, instead, I just grabbed RAM from another laptop I had lying around and installed it, giving my MacBook about, 12 gigs of RAM. Oh yeah, let me tell you something. After that, I've never had a problem with Photoshop. Literally, this thing boots up within seconds, and it doesn't slow down my computer. Even when I have other programs opening, it has no problem running Photoshop. So that's the good thing. Though what's funny is whenever I tell like heavy MacBook users about my RAM upgrade, they literally they have this look of horror on their faces that I didn't take it to the Apple genius. Oh my God, you voided your warranty. For crying out loud, by the time I did the upgrade, my warranty was already out, so it wouldn't have mattered either way. But it's kind of funny whenever you tell them that, because it's like blasphemous to Apple users that you don't take it to the Apple geniuses, that you don't let them take it and basically charge you exorbitant prices just for a repair. How dare you not do that? It's like, oh, come on. Shit like this is the reason why I'm a huge proponent of right to repair, and why I think we need to have more computer repair courses in high schools. Because you have an entire generation that doesn't know how to repair a computer. Instead, their entire attitude is, oh, if it's not working, just take it back to the company or buy a brand new one. And it's like, no, you can fix this stuff, folks. It's not rocket science. Yeah, don't listen to Apple when they tell you, oh, only our specialists can touch it. That's complete bullshit, okay? They're a bunch of lying scumbags that are charging you exorbitant prices just to repair something that honestly shouldn't cost $400 to $600. Anyway, I'm sorry if I'm just rambling. Let's move on to our first topic, which is limited run games. Now, some of you know who they are, but for those who don't, they're a company that focuses on giving smaller indie digital-only games their own physical releases. And they actually have a lot of good stuff out. In fact, recently I got 3 games from them, which were Rogue Legacy, Double Switch 25th Anniversary, and Freedom Planet. So they've got quite a lot of good stuff out there. And recently they announced a whole bunch of new games, one of which was, of course, Tetris Effect. Now, the thing about Tetris Effect, though, is that it's not exactly what you would call an indie title. This was actually a game that had a physical release. In fact, you can get it right now on Amazon for $30. So many fans were sort of taking the piss on limited run for sort of giving a game that already has a physical release another physical release. And one of these fans recently made a joke where they actually took the advertisement for Tetris Effect and they covered it with Skyrim. It was actually a pretty funny mock-up, the whole idea being that, like, oh, they're giving Skyrim another physical release, as if it needed it. Well, it seems that Limited Run wasn't exactly happy with this meme, and they actually, not only did they ban the person from their Facebook group, but they outright banned them from using their services. That's right, folks. They canceled all of their pre-orders. And on top of that, they threatened this person with a lawsuit for spreading misinformation. Are you friggin' kidding me, Limited Run? Really? Really? Oh, yes. This is totally misinformation, even though it's a friggin' joke. Like, I don't know how you can look at this and think that they're actually serious in thinking that this is a legit misinformation campaign. No, it isn't, Limited Run. And I think it's completely ridiculous that they go after anyone just for making a meme. Really? It's just like, oh, it's total bullshit. It really is total bullshit on this one. And the thing is, like, this is coming from someone who actually is a legit customer. I'm kind of annoyed by what Limited Run is doing, and I'm starting to reconsider supporting this company any further. And I think you should too, if you do. You know, because it's like, I don't want to support someone that thinks that they can just ban memes that they don't like. oh, well, we don't like this joke, so we're just going to ban you from using our services, cancel all your pre-orders, and then threaten to file a lawsuit against you. That is just absolutely nuts, and I think Limited Run should definitely reconsider even doing this shit next time. Like, seriously, it's just a joke. My God, can you imagine if Nintendo or Sony were so thin-skinned that anytime someone made a meme about them, they threatened a lawsuit against them and banned them from buying any of their future products? I mean, that would be nuts. It's totally friggin' nuts, and I think Limited Run should definitely reconsider this. I think that they should definitely not pull this shit ever again. They should definitely, uncancel this person's pre-orders. I mean, and the thing is, like, these games aren't exactly, cheap. These pre-orders actually can get pretty expensive. I mean, we're talking games that can go anywhere between, well, usually for standard version, there's about 30, $40. But, if you get a special edition from Limited Run, it can run up to 80 to even $120. So I think it's a bit, I think it's really annoying and ridiculous that Limited Run has to go after this person and has to cancel all their games. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and honestly, I think the person should reconsider ever supporting the company ever again. And lastly, we got to talk about Google Stadia. Oh boy. Now, some of you may remember all the way back in the first episode, I talked about Stadia, and I was very skeptical of it. Still am. Well, it seems that it's launched in my absence, and it turns out that everything I said, everything I was skeptical about, was absolutely right. This thing has been an absolute dumpster fire since launch. You had a lot of press that were covering it and showing the absolute terrible lag that this game had. I saw there was one video, I forgot what publication it was, but they were in a first-person shooter. They hit the space bar, and I'm not kidding you, it must have been like 15 or 20 seconds later, suddenly the character just jumped. That's how bad the lag of Stadia really is. It's like, holy hell, is it bad. But it's worse because as it turns out, Stadia is overheating and shutting down Chromecast units. That's right. Apparently, on the official subreddit for Stadia, apparently several people have complained about their Chromecast units overheating and shutting down because they can't handle the friggin' thing. And the funny thing is that anytime someone has complained about this or pointed it out, they get some Google representative up their ass basically telling them everything you're saying did not actually happen. No, that didn't happen. Your Chromecast unit is perfectly fine. These aren't the droids you're looking for. That's basically the kind of bullshit they're telling people on the Reddit. It's absolutely astounding seeing a company do that. Well, it's not exactly astounding because we've seen this a million times. Whenever a company fucks up on something, they try to just tell everyone that all of your problems and experiences are automatically invalid because, well, it hasn't happened to us. So therefore, it must not be a huge big deal, even though it's happened to you and several other 100,000 people. It's absolutely ridiculous whenever any company does this shit. But the funny thing is, it's not just that it's overheating units. It's also that the promised 4K resolution is complete bullshit. Okay? As it turns out, many people on the same subreddit have been complaining that the Stadia is not outputting in 4K resolution. And it's gotten to the point where even a representative from Bungie has come out and admitted that yes, it's not actually supporting 4K resolution. They said, and I quote, "When streaming at 4K, we render at native 1080p and then upsample and apply a variety of techniques to increase the overall quality of effect." So in other words, it's imitation 4K. It's not true 4K. It's the kind of 4K whenever you buy a movie and they say, oh, it's been remastered in 4K, but it's a Blu-ray, so it's going to be in 1080p. It's not actually in 4K. It's just, you get what I'm saying? Like, that's basically what it is. It's imitation 4K. It's trying to look like 4K, but it isn't actually 4K. Once again, it's Google basically blowing smokes up people's asses and then telling them that any problem you have is invalid. That's basically what it is. Folks, This is why I think whenever you hear a company that gives you a pie in the sky dream, they tell you, oh, you'll be able to do this and do that and all this awesome shit. Okay? When they promise you all this crap, be skeptical of it. Because most likely it's going to be complete bullshit. They're lying to you. They know they're lying to you, and they're just hoping that you're stupid enough to believe them. Don't buy into it. Be skeptical whenever these companies make these claims, because you know what? They're just a bunch of lying sacks of shit. They know they're a bunch of lying sacks of shit. And honestly, this is why I say don't ever support an all-digital future, especially when it comes to this. Because again, the thing is, you don't own these games. Remember, folks, when it comes to Stadia, you don't actually own these games. You're renting it out on a friggin' server farm. That's basically what it is. So even if you do complain, they don't care because they already have your money. They don't give a crap. Google could give two shits about you even if you did pay the money. They don't care because their money, they already got it. By the way, speaking of Stadia, I heard something about like they designed the controller to be gender neutral. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? I'm so sorry. Am I supposed to know that a controller has a gender? No, it's complete bullshit. It's honestly, whenever they say that sort of crap, it's nothing more than pandering to SJW progressives. That's basically what it is. They're trying to pander to those people and say, see, support us. We're progressive. We have a gender neutral controller. Whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And next up, we got to talk about Capcom, because there's some interesting stuff coming out from them. First and foremost, as many of you know, Capcom has been putting out the Devil May Cry games individually on the Switch. And while that's pretty awesome, there's been a lot of people have been wondering when they're going to put them out in one collection. Well, it seems that they actually are going to do that. It was announced recently that in Japan, they're releasing a triple pack of Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3 physically on the Switch. It's coming out on February 20th. And while that sounds nice and all, there's a bit of a catch. You see, if you've been paying attention to Capcom's collections lately, you'll notice that they don't put all the games on one cartridge. Instead, they keep putting like maybe one game on the cartridge and then everything else is digital. Well, it seems that they're doing exactly that with this. Devil May Cry will only be on the cartridge, and Devil May Cry 2 and 3 Special Edition will both be digital releases. And you know, I'm really getting sick of this shit from Capcom. Look, this is what's been putting me off from buying a lot of these collections for the Switch. I mean, they sound awesome, right? Hey, you get to get all the Mega Man games on one console. Except there's a catch, because half of them are actually on the cartridge, and the other half are digital. Okay, they did the same shit when it came to the Mega Man X collection. They did it with the Resident Evil Origins collection. I think they put out Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 as a physical release, but only 4 was actually on the cartridge. 5 and 6 were digital only. And this is really kind of annoying me, okay? Because it's lazy as hell. Capcom doesn't want to be bothered compressing all the games to fit on the cartridge. Hell, some of these games are small enough that you can fit them all on one cartridge. Like the Mega Man collections are complete bullshit. Okay, because you're telling me, Capcom, you can't fit Mega Man 1 through 10 on a single Switch cart. Bullshit. It's utter crap. It's nothing more than pure laziness. We don't want to be bothered putting it on one cart, so rather we're just going to make people digitally download half the games. And it's like, okay, what's going to happen years from now when, you know, the online services of the Switch shut down? What's going to happen? Okay, let's say, for example, someone buys this brand new or they buy it used. Well, they're only going to be getting half the collection. They're not going to get the other half because, surprise, surprise, the other half's code has already been used. Okay, this shit annoys the hell out of me to no end. It pisses me off whenever Capcom does this shit. Okay, and it's not just Capcom. Other companies have done this shit. They did this with the Spyro Reignited collection. That pissed me off. Because the thing with Reignited is that they didn't compress anything. All the textures and audio files were uncompressed. They put them out raw, and then they said, oh, by the way, we can't fit Spyro 1, 2, and 3 all on one disc. It's like, bullshit. You can. You just don't want to be bothered to actually compress the data so it could fit onto one cartridge or CD. In fact, let's be quite honest here, okay? A lot of that crap is done on purpose because they're basically fighting with other games for your hard drive space. That's the thing with a lot of these games. That's why they keep bloating the file size. Or, like, for example, you'll put in, like, Doom, and suddenly, next thing you know, you need to save up like 50 gigs of space. Because basically, they're trying to force you to delete other games on your hard drive so you can make room for their game. It's a dirty friggin' tactic, and it has me rethinking buying a lot of these games. Because it's like, you know what? No offense, but not everyone has space to fit all the stuff. It's dirty whenever companies do this shit. So that's why I say don't support any company that does this crap. Don't buy any game that tries to have half of it digital downloaded, okay? Because it's a scam. It's an outright friggin' scam. I've heard that the Mega Man ZX collection that's coming out in January. I heard that's going to be all on one cartridge. I'm going to wait and see because I'm not entirely sure about that. It could be complete bullshit. Anyway, the next Capcom-related news has to deal with Jump Festa 2020. Apparently, Capcom announced that they will be appearing at Jump Festa next year. And if you don't know what Jump Festa is, it's basically an anime convention that's sponsored by Shueisha, who's the publisher of Jump Comics. You know, they put out stuff like One Piece and Naruto and all that stuff, Dragon Ball. Anyway, so Capcom announced that they're going to be appearing at Jump Festa, and the big news about that was that they're going to also be putting out 2 unannounced games. Now, this has caused quite a lot of speculation as to what these 2 unannounced games are going to be. And so I thought I'd take a moment to sort of speculate and sort of give my own, like, what games I would like to see be brought back. And one in particular definitely is Darkstalkers. That's one series I'd love to see make a return. If you've never played it, it's basically Street Fighter meets the Universal Monsters. That's basically what it is. There were 3 Darkstalkers games. There was Darkstalkers, Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, and Darkstalkers 3. And then everything after that was like sort of a compilation of all 3 games. Like, for example, they had I think it was Darkstalkers Resurrection, the Chaos Tower. That was on the PSP, and it basically combined all 3 games into one. And then they put out, I think it was Darkstalkers Resurrection, and that was like an HD compilation. That was for the PS3 and the 360. I don't think you could download that anymore. I think it's one of those games where it's basically you can't even access it. Like, if you have it on your PS3 or 360, that's basically it. You can't re-download it. You can't delete it. You can't purchase it anymore. So it's been quite a while since we've had a Darkstalkers game, and I would definitely love to see that series make a return. In fact, I think that was this franchise that a lot of people were asking for when they started doing stuff like Street Fighter 4, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. A lot of people were asking Capcom to put out Darkstalkers, and then there's been nothing. There's been no news about it. No, like, oh yeah, we're going to totally do that. So it's like, come on, Capcom. You know people want this. You know they want Darkstalkers again. Bring it to them. Another one I'd like to see make a return is Dino Crisis. Oh, yes. Dino Crisis is definitely a good one. Well, it's the first 2 games. The third, Dino Crisis 3, is absolutely terrible. If you've never played it, it's basically dinosaurs in space. No, I'm not making that up. That is exactly what it is. But the first 2 Dino Crisis games are actually pretty good. They're basically Resident Evil with dinosaurs. And you would think, like, okay, that would probably suck. But it doesn't, because the dinosaurs are a lot harder to kill than zombies or even the hunters from Resident Evil. And actually, they're basically a lot harder to kill than any of the monsters in Resident Evil. So it makes things a little bit more... Also, there's a lot less of them in the game. Like, you know, in Resident Evil, you get a lot of zombies, but in Dino Crisis, there really isn't that many dinosaurs. So it raises the stakes a bit. And the first 2 games are actually really good. And so that's definitely one series I'd like to see make a return. Another series I'd like to see make a return, but probably won't happen, is Power Stone. Now, I think I mentioned it a few months ago. I talked about how the creators of the series would like to see a return to of Power Stone. So definitely there are people, you know, who behind the franchise who would like to see it return. However, as to whether or not that would happen, it probably wouldn't, unfortunately. And it's a real shame, because Power Stone is excellent. If you've never played it, it's basically like, it's Capcom's version. I wouldn't say it's like Capcom's version of Super Smash Brothers, but it definitely is like their own sort of like melee party fighting game. Like, that's the best way to describe it. And it's actually really good. Power Stone 1 and 2 were excellent on the Dreamcast. And I think they had a PSP collection, which is also pretty good, and I highly recommend you go check that out. But I would love to see Power Stone make a return. Breath of Fire is definitely another one. There was a 6th game that was announced a few years ago, and it was a mobile exclusive. Like, they put out Breath of Fire 6, and I think it's been out. I think they shut down the servers for it a few years ago, so it's not even playable. But I think Capcom, what they should do is give us a proper Breath of Fire 6. Completely retcon the mobile game. It shouldn't even count as a Breath of Fire game. And really just give us a proper one. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of give my own thoughts and sort of just talk about like Capcom games I'd like to see make a return. So anyway, folks, please leave a comment below. Definitely tell me what Capcom franchises you'd like to see make a return. Anyway, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And now we got to talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield for a bit because, oh boy, my God. Like, okay, like Sword and Shield, like this was a game I was actually looking really forward to. But as we got closer to the launch, the more I started looking into it, the more I started being less interested in it. Because for the most part, it's missing half the national Pokédex, and the world just looks lifeless. It looks empty. It doesn't really look appealing to me. In fact, I would say it looks worse than X and Y Sun and Moon. Like, those games actually look really good compared to Sword and Shield. So it just sort of put me off, and I decided not to get it. On top of that, and then after launch, a whole bunch of other stuff came out, like the numerous glitches that had been recorded. There's also the fact that in the end credits sequence, apparently there's a cursor that shows up. And there were some people trying to defend it by saying that, oh no, that's running on an emulator. That's not actually in the game. But then you had people who were uploading videos of the game running on a Switch, and you still see the cursor in the credit sequence. So the game overall is probably the lowest quality main series Pokemon game released to date. And a lot of that has to deal with the fact that apparently they didn't even put their A team on this game. Like the team that's used to making all the Pokemon games, they didn't even make this one. This was made by the B team, who is apparently, like, they mostly make like a lot of the spin-off games. So they're not exactly used to making a main series Pokemon game, and because of that, it doesn't really look very good. Apparently their A team is right now working on was it Little Town Hero? I think that's the name of it. And honestly, I honestly don't think a game like that is going to really do very well. Because here's the thing. When it comes to Game Freak, the only games that sell well have the words Pokemon in it. Like, it's absolutely true. Anytime Game Freak has tried to put out an IP, a brand new IP, it doesn't really do very well. Then there was another game they put out a few years ago. It was Harmo Knight. And it was like, didn't really do very well. But anyway, I'm getting way off track here. But apparently, before launch, someone on 4chan had actually leaked information about the strategy guide. And because of that, they've leaked information about new Pokemon that Game Freak weren't going to announce. Well, it seems like this really annoyed Game Freak and Nintendo, and now they're sending out their lawyers to find out and track down the leakers. Like, no joke. They've put out a press release stating that they're going to track down the leakers, and they're going to find out who leaked this information. Personally, I say who cares? It's like the game's already out. They claim that was another thing. They claim that it caused irreparable injury and damages to the franchise. No, it didn't. Trust me, the people who were put off from buying Sword and Shield weren't put off because new Pokemon were leaked. Okay, they were put off by the low quality of the game. But Nintendo's not going to announce that. Instead, they're going to try and go after people for what? Leaking new Pokemon? Oh, big whoop. You see, I never understood that. You got these people who see that as a spoiler. Like, they're like, oh, don't tell me the new Pokemon. I don't want it spoiled for me. It's not a spoiler. Spoilers are story related. They have nothing to do with whether or not there's a new character or a new monster in the game, in any game. It all has to do with story. And so whenever there's a new Pokemon, people are like, "Oh, don't get the new Pokemon spoiled for you." It's like, I don't care. I'd rather know what new Pokemon are out there, especially to see if the designs are crappy or not. But anyway, I just find this hilarious that Nintendo was trying to go after the leakers of the strategy guide rather than, I don't know, trying to fix all the problems with Pokemon Sword and Shield. Nah, they're not going to do that. Of course, they can't admit that maybe they put out a low quality main series Pokemon game. They can't admit that. How dare they? So anyway, moving on to the next topic. Okay, this next one's actually kind of funny. Recently, 2K Games has announced that they will be shutting down the servers for Battleborn in January of 2021. And my response to this when I first heard it was that it's still running. Because Battleborn is one of those games that never really made it that popular. It was, I don't think it's ever hit 100 concurrent players. I think the maximum amount of players it's ever had was 15, and that's it. If you've never heard of Battleborn, it's not your fault. It was mostly, it didn't do very well, mostly because of poor timing and marketing. It came out, it was announced around the same time that Blizzard announced Overwatch. So from the moment the game was announced, it was in the shadow of Overwatch because everyone was more interested in that. And then it came out, I think it was like a few weeks before Overwatch. So the moment Overwatch came out, no one gave a shit about Battleborn. Ever since its launch, no one has actually given a crap about the game. And like I said, the most amount of players it's had at the exact same time is 15. That's it. That is the most amount of players this game has ever had. And it's sad, but it's also kind of funny at the exact same time. In fact, it kind of reminds me of a very funny story that happened after the game's launch. Randy Pitchford was desperate for anyone to play this game. So what he did is he started creating Battleborn porn because he saw that the big thing was Overwatch porn. A lot of people had actually played Overwatch because they had actually seen like Steam filmmaker porn of the characters. And so apparently he actually started creating his own Battleborn porn and then started a subreddit for Battleborn porn. And this was his brilliant marketing strategy to try to get people to play the game. But the thing is, no one gave a crap about it. It was just like, it was just so friggin' sad. It was like, really? You think that people are just going to play the game because you made porn of your own characters? That is just, it's like, how the level of desperation you need to be is truly astounding. Hell, I'm not sure why 2K is even waiting until 2021. I mean, like I said, there's barely anyone playing the game. I mean, you could just shut it down at the end of the year and that basically no one would give a crap. Like, you're probably just wasting money keeping those servers up and running since no one's friggin' using them. So, honestly, they should just get it done and over with rather than just waiting until 2021. Just do it. Just you know, take it out, take Battleborn out back and take it out Old Yeller style already, okay? Anyway, and lastly, we have Five Nights at Freddy's 1 through 4 is now currently available for all major systems. That includes the PS4, the Xbox One, the Switch. And honestly, I'm covering this because I thought it was interesting that they even bothered giving it a console release, because this is a franchise that stopped being relevant. Oh, I don't know, 2015, 2016? Like, it hasn't been relevant for years, and yet here they are trying to re-release these games as if anyone even cares anymore. You remember when Five Nights at Freddy's was a huge thing? I mean, holy crap, it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. Literally everywhere you went, it was Five Nights at Freddy's this, Five Nights at Freddy's that. You go on YouTube, and you had 50 million YouTube channels trying to cover it. You had all these Let's Players playing it and pretending to scream like little girls. You had people like MatPat doing all these stupid theory videos. In fact, I think that was like at the height of his career, basically, was when he was doing like the Five Nights at Freddy's theory videos, which honestly, I always thought that shit was just cringy as hell and just really stupid. And by the way, anyone who does clickbait thumbnails, there's a special place in hell for you. I'm just saying. But anyway, it's just like, it's funny seeing that entire franchise just kind of like die down and not be as big as it used to be. I think a lot of it also had to do with it wasn't just oversaturation. It was also the fact that they kept pumping out those games. I remember, didn't they pumped out like Five Nights at Freddy's 2, like what, 6 months after the original, and then it was another 6 months for the third game, and then another, and it was for the fourth, and it was crazy. It was like every 6 months there was a new Five Nights at Freddy's game, and it was like, dude, calm down. Like, I understand it's popular, but take your time with the sequels, you know, please. Like, at least when it came to like Silent Hill, they waited 2 years to release the sequel. The same thing with I think with Resident Evil. They waited 2 years to release the sequel, and here this guy released 4 games within the span of like what, 2 years? It was crazy. Hell, I remember when this franchise was so big that they even had plans for a movie, which then completely fell apart. And I think they then switched it over to the banana splits. Yeah, they turned. I think they completely took the Five Nights at Freddy's movie script and they just completely just swapped out the characters for like the banana splits, which made no sense because the banana splits were people in costumes. They weren't animatronics. And I know I'm sounding like a boomer, but if you don't know what the banana splits are, it was a children's show from like the mid to late 60s. It had these people in like mascot costumes driving around in like dune buggy type cars and like doing these stupid skits. It's a very weird show. My dad grew up with it. I think my mom grew up with it as well. And like they would tell me and my sister about it, and I think we watched it once and we were just like, what the fuck were they watching? Like, of course, I'm fairly certain that a younger generation is looking at shit like Ren and Stimpy and wondering what the fuck we were doing watching that. So anyway, but I find it interesting just how far this series has fallen, because like it was huge. It was like one of the biggest indie games to come out in a while, and then it just quickly disappeared like that. Like, suddenly no one gave a crap about it. And it's simply because Five Nights at Freddy's was nothing more than what you would call a trendy game. It was the kind of game that trended on social media. People only played it because it was popular and trendy. And then a few months down the line, everyone just stopped giving a crap because they moved on to something else. You know, like, for example, first it was Five Nights at Freddy's, and then it was Undertale, and then it was Overwatch, and all this kind of shit. That's all it is. That's what you call a trendy game. It's the kind of game that people are really into for a few months. They really like it, and then they just drop it like a ton of bricks, and they stop caring because they've moved on to something else. That's exactly what it is. You know, it's not the kind of game that I don't think people are going to go back and be playing it, 10 years from now. And I'm not entirely sure people would definitely go back and play the first 4 games on modern systems. Hell, I thought that the original game would have been perfect on the Wii U because of the Wii U setup. But like I said, people moved on. They stopped playing the games, and well, it's like you just got to move on. You can't just re-release the same game over and over again for every major system and expect people to buy it again. I mean, yeah, that works for Nintendo, but that's because Nintendo's games are still good 30 years later. I'm not entirely sure if the same thing could be said about Five Nights at Freddy's these days. I'm fairly certain most people who play the games now are probably not even interested in replaying them again. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. Anyway, folks, that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Remember, you can listen to the show on YouTube and BitChute, as well as follow me on Twitter and Gab. Links are in the description. Anyway, I'll see you all next week. And remember that video games will never die.